Assalamu alaikum. Masakum Allah bikhair jami'an. It's no secret that we live at a very interesting time. On one hand, you're seeing growing tensions and destruction happening in several places in the world. And on the other hand, there is this incredible growth of technological innovation and a growing number of people who believe that they should be doing a positive impact on this world. I mean, Fadi Ghandour earlier was like an app that helps you figure out surgery. That's incredibly mind-blowing for me. And even more personally, from yesterday to today, just like hearing so many people mention the word purpose and doing something that's bigger than yourself is incredibly refreshing. So I'm an optimist. I'm part of Generation Y that Mr. Bloom spoke about yesterday. I'm part of the generation that believes that they can and should be making a positive difference on this world. And in fact, I decided to dedicate my entire career to doing just that. But it wasn't always this way. It required a series of courageous and sometimes unconventional choices. And that's what I'd like to talk to you guys about today. Those choices that we make that impact ourselves and the world around us. So I want to go back a little bit to sort of the first choice of all those choices, which is perhaps leaving a corporate job that was stable and had a clear, stable income, clear trajectory, and all of that, to the complete unknown. And the latest of those choices, which is starting just a year and a half ago. At Just, we're a technology startup, and we're focused on connecting the shopper with the story behind their clothing. Some of you might wonder why. I won't be offended. Why are you connecting the shopper with the story behind their clothing? And I'd like to ask you, actually, guys, a question. How many of you here, show of hands, have consumed or bought organic food, local produce, fair trade coffee, fair trade chocolate? Incredible. So many hands in the room. That's really great. For those of you who haven't tried it, try it. How many of you here have thought about where does your clothes come from? It's okay. You don't have, oh, wow. It's incredible. So when people ask me why are we focusing on telling the stories behind our clothing? It's because the fashion industry is one of the largest industries in the world. It's a $2 trillion industry, and it has a complex supply chain in which, in its complexities, hides human rights abuses and destructive environmental practices. It employs over 200 million people globally and is touted for the most human rights abuses and is the second largest polluting industry after oil. Second largest. So I'll tell you guys a little bit more about how we're addressing that issue and that big problem as part of Just. But maybe before going there, I'd like to share with you a personal lesson and a reflection. When I was doing my MBA, now 5 years ago, I feel very old. When I was doing my MBA, I knew I had clarity that I wanted to do this MBA to combine business degree with doing social good. I wanted to use my business skills for positive impact. And that motivation took me at the time to Rwanda, where I was working on an international development project with the Ministry of Health there. And the project was sponsored by an international aid agency. And for the first time in my career, I was confronted with the inefficiencies and bureaucracies of aid. I remember sitting in my tiny hotel room in Kigali and feeling incredibly defeated. Like there was like a system that was way bigger than myself that was fighting against the change that we're trying to make. And in that hotel room, on my nightstand, there was a book that everyone had told me that I should read before going to Rwanda. And I bought it, but I sort of put it off. And in that night, I needed the distraction, so I picked it up. The book is called The Blue Sweater by Jacqueline Novogratz. And in the book, Jacqueline shares, in my opinion, an incredible lesson in humility, an incredible lesson in leadership. She says that leaders in this industry need to have the humility to see the world as it is, yet the audacity to imagine it as it could be. And in that tension between the two, the humility about, what's the realities, what are the challenges on the ground, and not being naive about them, but at the same time, the optimism and seeing what it could be and striving to get to the world that you believe in. In that moment, that message really invigorated me in that moment of defeat, and made a huge impact on my life. And then I, in fact, couldn't stop reading the book. I finished it that night, and the minute I closed the book, I was like, I'm working for that woman, I'm going and learning from her, and I'm working for the organization that she started, which is Acumen. And at the time, it felt like another one of those unconventional choices. No one back home had heard much about Acumen. I remember subtly gifting the book to my mom to introduce her to the idea of the fact that I was going to make that choice. And it felt scary. I mean, people were graduating business school, and everyone was taking stable full-time jobs and even social impact jobs, but they were stable and full-time. And I was packing my bags and going on this fellowship and moving to India for a year. I actually remember my career advisor looking at me and being like, you're bringing the class salary average really, really down, and I'm upset at you. But I did it, and it was one of the best choices that I think I've ever made in my life. I learned so much, more than I ever gave to that organization or the people that were in it. In that journey, when I was in India, fast forward, I met with my co-founder, Natalie. Now, at the time, Natalie was working in Uganda. She was working with organic cotton farmers, and there was this incredible story of impact with these farmers. They had increased livelihood, they were pulling themselves out of poverty, and we sat one night in India thinking about, wouldn't it be incredible if that story was communicated all the way up the supply chain to the shopper? Wouldn't it be nice if they knew, the impact that they were having as part of that purchase? Seemed like a really simple question. We're like, what if there's an Intel Insight for fashion? Sounded interesting. We both have entrepreneurial streaks, so we started talking about it, started discussing the topic. And about 2 to 3 weeks after that discussion, Rana Plaza happened, which is the factory collapse in Dhaka, Bangladesh, where over 1,129 people were killed making clothes for international fashion brands that we all buy and consume from on a daily basis. It was a sobering call to action for both me and Natalie. I mean, here we were in India and in Uganda, dedicating our life to positive impact and alleviating poverty and bringing dignity to people, where something as simple as the t-shirts on our backs were causing poverty, indignity, and even death somewhere else in the world. It didn't make sense. It felt hypocritical. So we decided to do something about it. And researched the fashion industry to try to understand where are the breakdowns that were happening in this information, and how can we create change, positive change on this industry. And it turns out that there's a lot of people on the ground that are working on the supply chain. Nonprofits, activist group, monitoring agencies that are working with the suppliers and the brands to help them better their practices. Yet there was a big missing piece that no one was addressing, a piece of market forces, of demand from shoppers to create urgency on these brands to change their practices. We decided to focus on that piece, and we worked on it in different ways. We've worked on consulting projects with brands to help trace back their supply chain and do interactive shopper experiences in store and online for the shopper to learn that story. We're just finishing up a project with Chipotle. How many of you here know about Chipotle? Awesome. That helps. So the Chipotle t-shirts have a chili on them. So in store, you can scan that chili, and you'll know the story about where that t-shirt came from. But perhaps my most proud moment is what we launched last December, which is the platform projectjust.com, where you as a shopper can search any brand and learn the stories behind it and the ethics and sustainability practice that are going on. So you can go online, right now, to projectjust.com, and you can be like, Zara, and you'll know the social conditions, the environmental conditions, management, and many others. And the goal for this platform is to grow through contribution. People from the ground, supply chain partners, brands themselves, and users, adding their voices and their facts to this effort in transparency. So over the past year and a half of us doing this, there were many ups and downs and moments of incredible doubt, of course, as any entrepreneur. But we've also had incredible moments of validation. We were awarded as an international innovation in justice at the International Court of Justice in The Hague. We've participated in many award ceremonies and entrepreneurship conferences. And the fashion industry in some way have embraced us, writing about us and spreading the message about Just. But perhaps the most meaningful validation for myself and the rest of the team has been the validation of the users. The people like yourself who are shopping and asking why and looking for the information and making better informed decisions. So the one thing that I want to leave you with today is that at Just we believe that real change happens in the accumulation of all the small choices that we make in our everyday life. And I encourage you to think about those choices, however small they are, and think about the world that we want to all live in and how you can make those positive changes in your life. So, thank you.